Throughout time, there have been mysteries mankind cannot explain. But advances in technology have led to new theories, and the search is underway for evidence that may unlock the most baffling questions of our time. On Mystery Quest.
Miami radar, this is Bonanza Alpha 36, come in.
The skies are calm. This small plane is 70 miles from the Florida coast, headed to West Palm Beach.
Where are we?
Suddenly, the single-engine Beechcraft is lost, trapped in a bizarre storm cloud 40,000 feet tall.
I don't see a way out. There's no way out of here.
The 23-year-old pilot and his passenger are staring death in the face. Straight ahead, the only chance for escape, but it's closing fast.
Hurry up, over there. We gotta move.
The pilot swoops into the swirling cloud tunnel, but what looks like an escape route turns into a trap.
Nothing's working. Nothing makes sense.
Compasses spin. Instruments fail. This plane is about to become the latest victim of the Bermuda Triangle. It lies just off of Florida, an abyss where all conventional reasoning is called into question. Over the centuries, it's had many names. The Sea of Doom, the Graveyard of the Atlantic, the Devil's Triangle. But amid the mystery, there is one certainty. Perfectly functioning airplanes and ships seem to disappear here with no warning.
The enigma of the Bermuda Triangle is that more aircraft and ships will vanish than any other place in the world in circumstances that it would seem impossible to disappear.
The Bermuda Triangle encompasses 500,000 square miles of open water between Miami, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. While records of disappearances are no means complete, in the last 35 years alone, the most diabolical spot on the planet has claimed more than 700 boats, 120 planes, and countless lives. But even more mysterious are the circumstances surrounding these disappearances. They all vanished in fair weather, without a trace. No bodies, no explanations.
These are aircraft disappearing while taking off or coming in for a landing, or ships that have more than an adequate radio capabilities, and yet they sail away or fly away and no trace is ever found again.
The cause for triangle disappearances has been attributed to everything from sea monsters to pirates, even UFOs. Now, Mystery Quest will venture into the triangle itself to investigate. The expedition team will be searching unexplored underwater wreckage, attempting to find physical evidence from a missing plane. To do this, they must locate an N number, the unique ID assigned to every aircraft flying. It must then be cross-referenced with a number from a list of planes that disappeared in the triangle. It would be the first time an unexplained disappearance had been discovered, and a groundbreaking step in explaining triangle disappearances. The science team will be testing the theory that electronic fog may be attaching itself to planes flying directly through the triangle.
Holy, we're bouncing off the scale.
Mystery Quest will also examine a case that could prove UFOs are responsible for some aircraft disappearances. And this specially built wave tank will help explore a theory that massive breakers called rogue waves could explain ship disappearances in the area. Many pilots report encountering a bizarre phenomenon known as electronic fog just before they disappear in the triangle. One instance happened in 1980.
A pilot took off in a Beechcraft Baron from St. Thomas, flying to Miami. Hours later, he reported himself off Miami. He was losing his engines. He was going down to ditch. He was at 150 feet altitude, he said, disoriented in clouds. Miami confirmed it was perfect weather, and they could not understand what was going on. And no more is heard until 11 hours later, 11 hours after fuel starvation, 11 hours after he signaled he was going down. Caicos Tower, which is about 600 miles from Miami, got a call. They got it clearly. They got the call number of the plane, N9027Q, and he said he was 10 minutes out. He wanted clearance to land.
But the plane never arrived. There is only one man who is known to have survived an encounter with electronic fog: Bruce Gernon. He was at the stick of the December 4th, 1970 flight through the mysterious cloud tunnel. The experience changed him forever.
There are still many unanswered questions. I realized that I had experienced something that no other person had ever done before.
Gernon spent the year after the incident studying every detail of his flight. He believes that a supernatural force within the cloud caused him to travel through time.
The radar controller, he's yelling as loud as he can that he's got an airplane directly over Miami Beach. And I look at my watch, and we had only been flying for just over 30 minutes.
The flight should have taken an hour.
There was a rip or a cut in the fabric of time. Everything sort of had like an electricity to it. That was when I thought of the word electronic fog.
Physics professor David Paris has spent the last 4 years studying electronic fog. He will test the theory that this phenomenon could explain many of the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle.
I would classify Bruce's story as probably one of the best documented, very detailed stories of the triangle. The explanations really come back to this electronic fog issue. So I went back and I started to recreate the weather scenarios there, the weather forensics for each missing airplane. And a pattern started to evolve.
Paris used a 2008 NASA report on solar energy bombarding the Earth as the basis for his theory. He believes when solar energy combines with thunderstorm activity, it creates this electronic fog. To prove it, Paris will monitor solar and weather activity. And when the conditions are right, the science team will fly into the heart of the triangle itself to gather the evidence they need. The expedition team is also searching for evidence. While the electronic fog theory may explain how the planes disappeared, physical evidence from a downed plane could prove it. The team has identified multiple sites and is seeking concrete proof from at least one that could explain triangle disappearances. The expedition will be led by explorer Greg Little. He spent the last 6 years searching the triangle.
It's a quest. It's a personal quest. What we really have here is a naturalistic phenomena that does occur that confuses pilots, confuses boat captains.
Little, a pilot himself, believes that not enough time has been spent investigating these wrecks.
There is no FAA in the Bahamas. There is no National Transportation Safety Board who investigates accidents. There's just nothing like that.
The search grid is on the Great Bahama Bank. The team chose it because it's a vast area, full of unexplored plane wrecks that sit in shallow water, making them easy to spot. But many could simply be drug-running planes abandoned by criminals, making identifying a triangle wreck a daunting task.
There's a plane here we need to try and find, and then there's spots out here, those really interesting dark spots in the water.
The dark spots are beneath the ocean surface and indicate that unnatural objects are present. When wrecks have been on the ocean floor long enough, patches of seagrass form around them, making them much more visible. The team has identified more than 50 of these spots.
The biggest problem in searching the Great Bahama Bank for planes, ships, or anything else, it's simply logistics.
All right, let's get underway.
There's a unique problem with searching shallow waters. They're virtually unreachable by most search vessels. Little has custom built his boat specifically for these hard-to-get-to spots.
The biggest advantage to our boat right now is this. It is a catamaran, so it's really stable, and because of that, it only goes down a foot. It goes into the water 12 inches, that's all.
The team arrives at the first site, a plane that crashed in just 3 feet of water. The wreckage is strewn everywhere.
That's some of the engine, and that's the exhaust.
The plane has its wheels facing up, so the team is careful not to hit parts hidden just below the surface.
Just hold it right here. Stop. Yeah, I don't want to hit metal. Fiberglass and metal don't mix real well.
Not much of the body of the plane left.
When it hit pretty hard. I mean, for it to tear the engines apart, both of the engines are just totally torn apart here. Generally, in water landings, you're going to die. Interestingly, the wheels are extended, so whenever it came in, they had the wheels down, which is odd, because you don't do a water landing with your wheels down.
No trace of the crew was ever found, but the landing gear may offer hard facts about the fate of the flight.
It probably did flip repeatedly. That's why this stuff's scattered so much.
Having the gear down would have most certainly caused the plane to flip. No pilot attempting a water landing would want the gear extended.
All I know is if I was flying it, I would want to try to sit it down, stall it, and try to sit it in the water.
The extended gear could mean the pilot was in clouds or fog and thought he was over land. And the plane's instruments may not have helped him if they were malfunctioning, as is often reported in triangle disappearances.
The only way you can really tell what plane is what is you've got to get the ID number, the official N number off the tail. And if you get that, then you can match up the plane with the owner and when it disappeared.
N numbers are the ID numbers given to almost all registered aircraft. Usually printed on the tail section, they are unique, making them like a plane's fingerprint. The team spreads out to scour the site for the plane's tail. The scattered wreckage makes finding the tail next to impossible.
That looks like part of the cowling from the engine. It's been down there for a long time.
The team cannot find any part bearing the numbers they need.
No numbers.
And decide to try another location. The trip will take them past a mysterious restricted area that some say could be connected to the triangle disappearances.
This is an area that's had a lot of UFO reports. Lights coming up out of the water, glows under the water.
Mystery Quest has traveled to the strange waters of the Devil's Triangle, hoping to unlock the secrets of one of the most notorious places on Earth. The earliest recorded instance of strange happenings here was from Christopher Columbus in 1492. He wrote not only of strange compass readings, but also mysterious lights in the sky. 1918 saw the first disappearance of a military vessel, the USS Cyclops. The 542-foot U.S. Navy cargo ship was en route from Brazil to Baltimore, bisecting the Triangle. The ship was last seen by a British patrol off of Barbados in perfect condition, just hours before it disappeared. Even more shocking, there was no distress call before the ship and its crew of more than 300 sailors vanished forever. The first aircraft incident involved history's most famous aviator, Charles Lindbergh. At the end of his life, he revealed that one day in 1928, he became hopelessly lost in the area, trapped in a mysterious fog. His compass spun wildly, and he was disoriented for hours before he could finally escape. But 1945 saw the most baffling triangle disappearance, called Flight 19. 5 Navy bombers took off from their Fort Lauderdale base in a perfect sunny day, headed for Grand Bahama Island. The first hour of the flight was routine.
This flight actually was a routine training flight. All of the pilots had several hundred hours in various types of planes.
David White, a Navy flight instructor, was on duty in the control tower when the planes disappeared.
We couldn't believe it. How could 5 of our qualified pilots be missing all at one time?
The only clue, a report that each plane's compasses were malfunctioning.
It's very unusual that both compasses would go out. A magnetic compass goes out if you're in a storm. The gyro compass hardly ever goes out, but once in a while. 2 compasses going out at the same time would be a very rare occurrence.
Flight 19 was way off course when they lost radio contact. None of the planes or 14 crew members were ever seen or heard from again. The Navy scrambled a seaplane to hunt for the men. But incredibly, it too disappeared from radar over the Atlantic, and that plane and its crew of 13 were never found. Author Gian Kazar is one of the world's leading authorities on the Bermuda Triangle. He's studied and documented hundreds of disappearances there. He believes evidence points to UFOs as the cause of mysterious disappearances.
A number of witnesses of unexplained incidents have in fact reported UFOs.
UFO sightings have also been reported around this mysterious restricted area next to Andros Island in the Bahamas. It is not far from the expedition team's wreckage search area.
This is an area that's had a lot of UFO reports.
This place is a U.S. Navy facility called AUTEC, short for Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center.
AUTEC was initially started during the Cold War, and it was a British-American submarine testing facility.
More recently, it's become known as the Navy's Area 51. Like its land-based counterpart, AUTEC is notorious as the site of alleged studies on extraterrestrials and UFOs, or in this case, USOs, unidentified submerged objects.
There's been reports of lights coming out of this area. Lights coming up out of the water, glows under the water.
Some believe that this activity could be linked to triangle disappearances here, and there may be evidence in a mysterious aircraft Mayday recording.
In 1980, it's the only time we had a pilot actually saying a weird object is directing itself to interfere with the flight and prevent it from actually reaching safety.
This is the last photo taken of the plane before it disappeared. The man pictured, Jose Pagan Jimenez, was on board that day.
This picture was taken a month before they vanished in 1980. It's one of the rare cases where we do have a Mayday
These are the last words heard from pilot Jose Torres. They have never before been heard on television. Kazar checked radar records at the Atlantic Fleet Weapons Range in Vieques, Puerto Rico. They indicated a strange, unexplainable radar signature in the area.
Moments later, an object reappeared on radar without any transponder code, and it was heading in a different direction, and then it too vanished shortly thereafter.
The unexplained disappearance became even more troubling.
There was no ELT signal. There was no indication the aircraft impacted.
ELTs, or emergency locator transmitters, are standard equipment on planes like the Aircoup. They are designed to send a distress call in the event of a crash. But in this case, the ELT did not activate.
In the instance of the Triangle, there's about 120 craft I know that carried ELTs, and in no case has any signal ever been sent indicating impact or sinking.
The U.S. military will not discuss failed ELTs near the Bermuda Triangle. The Coast Guard, charged with responding to ELT signals, answered repeated requests for comment with the following statement.
The Bermuda Triangle, or Devil's Triangle, is a mythical geographic area. The U.S. Coast Guard is not impressed with supernatural explanations of disasters at sea.
Researcher David Paris believes a phenomenon called electronic fog may be a more likely explanation.
Inside the aircraft, your instrumentation typically will go out. Most pilots, they're going to be worried about, well, what happened? Is it an electronic failure? What's going on? They activate the radio, they try to get the approach control, and they can't raise them. Radar goes out. It looks like your airplane's dead.
Paris will test the electronic fog theory by flying straight into the triangle.
The goal of this flight is to get additional data, the possible collection of data in the involvement of electronic fog. So we're hoping to gather anything and everything that we can that could be of significance in unraveling this, quote, mystery.
Paris says electronic fog is produced when normal thunderclouds are bombarded by abnormal levels of solar winds. Solar winds contain high levels of electromagnetic energy, and they've been known to knock out satellites and disrupt power grids. NASA recently confirmed that the Earth's protective shield, the magnetosphere, is weaker than previously thought. As a result, Paris believes that higher levels of solar energy are influencing places on the globe, like the Bermuda Triangle.
But when that gets into the atmosphere, residual energy of electrons, protons, all these pieces of material can actually influence and stimulate storm activity.
Meteorologist James Whelan thinks these kind of conditions are lining up again. Storm activity is forming inside the Bermuda Triangle.
So yeah, it looks like in a couple hours, if you guys are flying over to Andros, I mean, basically you're going to be following the front, which is good because you'll probably get some of those, you know, towering Qs out there.
Towering Qs, or cumulus clouds, could trigger the kind of electronic fog that swallowed Bruce Gernon's plane, if there are solar winds present.
You notice it's dimensionless.
Paris confirms that the solar winds are getting stronger.
And here, as 475, the norm is usually about 300 kilometers per second. So that means we've got a little bit more increase of energy coming into the Earth. And the solar winds have picked up a little bit from just an hour ago. So this is pretty encouraging.
It means electronic fog is likely building within the triangle. Paris briefs the team on the action plan should they encounter it.
Any kind of electric field that the cloud would generate, we're going to be able to pick that up onto the meter. We're going to be able to measure how much energy is coming out of the cloud.
To test their theory, the team will be using a frequency counter to measure electricity and a tri-field meter to monitor magnetic levels.
When you push the button, we're by the cloud, we should get some type of representation of frequency from the cloud itself.
The normal reading would be 0. The team will also test Gurnon's theory that he traveled ahead 30 minutes in time. They synchronize stopwatches.
If we encounter electronic fog, what we want to do is be able to measure the difference of time. So we want to see if we can quantify this or take some real measurements and see if we have something that we can follow, allow the data to carry us to a conclusion.
They will fly the exact path of Gurnon's original flight between Miami and Andros Island.
Holy, we're bouncing off the scale!
A paranormal researcher named Vincent Gaddis is credited with coining the term Bermuda Triangle. It first appeared in print in a 1964 article for Argosy magazine.
Mystery Quest is searching the Bermuda Triangle for answers to explain why planes and ships disappear from here without warning, without a trace, and without explanation. The expedition team is preparing to fly into the triangle to recreate a dangerous flight that almost claimed Bruce Gurnon's life. Physicist David Paris will be measuring electricity and magnetism levels to monitor for electronic fog anomalies or shifts in time. The plane lifts off at 1:07 p.m.
November 2057 Hotel, no delay in your descent through flight level 180 for traffic.
Gurnon is the only person on the plane who's experienced electronic fog.
And everything turns this strange gray, and there's no horizon. You can't see the sky. It was weird. It was like kind of fuzzy looking. That's all this electricity that's in this thing. And then I look at the compass, and it's slowly rotating counterclockwise all by itself. And I say, oh, God.
During his initial flight, Gurnon could not maneuver his way out of the fog. Paris thinks he knows why.
He wasn't flying through fog, but the, quote, fog was attached to him. It was flying with him, and that was the big difference. When aircraft venture into that little zone, the aircraft acts very much like a passive antenna.
This would mean electronic fog could literally attach itself to a passing plane. This could also knock out navigational instruments, essentially meaning the pilot would be flying blind. The team is approaching the set of building storm clouds they've targeted. The expedition team, led by Greg Little, is searching the sea for explanations to mysterious disappearances. The divers are searching for N numbers, a plane's unique ID tag. They're headed to a crash site 50 miles offshore.
This particular site, as well as all the others, are in a relatively remote area. Fishermen don't come in. It's not a regular path for boats between Bimini and Andros. It's just too shallow.
They've nicknamed this spot the Eyeball.
Look circular, or almost like the eye shape. This one doesn't look natural. The others that we just looked at a little while ago all look natural. This one does not look natural.
There's little doubt that this wreckage is from a plane, but it's almost completely buried in the sand.
So the tail section, which normally would be vertical, is now stuck even deeper into the sand. So it could be 3, 4, 5 feet into the sand, assuming the tail didn't break off when the plane crashed here.
The team quickly abandons their search for the tail. They begin looking for other parts that could help ID the plane. The FAA requires manufacturers of aircraft parts to identify them with a serial number or some other marking so they can be traced in the event of a crash.
That is part of a wheel. You can actually see some of the gears on the wheel there. This part of the hydraulics, that would be part of the shock absorber on the plane. So it would come down like so. The wheel would be there, and that's actually pretty large. It's difficult to say what this is from.
The part is too corroded to help identify the plane. The next part brought up is promising.
Yeah, it looks like she's got something, some sort of cylinder-shaped metal. That looks interesting.
Just the very tip of it was sticking out.
Awesome, awesome.
It's one of the plane's propeller blades. The blade is twisted, likely from impact. The team will need to send it back to the lab for further analysis.
Over to the side here, it says it was etched in 9/20/66. So that means certainly had to be a plane that crashed after 1966.
Mystery Quest is searching the Devil's Triangle for evidence of planes and ships that have vanished from this area without a trace, many in fair weather. For centuries, mariners who know these waters have told of swells of unbelievable size that could appear out of nowhere and swallow ships whole. Known as rogue waves, there was never any proof of their existence. Then in 1980, off the coast of South Africa, a tanker called the S.O. Langdok had a fateful encounter. The ship was navigating normal swells of 15 feet when out of nowhere, a 90-foot monster wave swept over the deck. The breaker nearly sank the ship. The first mate snapped this photograph from the bridge. Dr. Hans Graber believes many of the Bermuda Triangle disappearances are not the paranormal at work. He thinks they can be explained by science. Graber is head of the University of Miami School of Marine and Atmospheric Science and the world's leading expert on wave dynamics. He's developed a state-of-the-art device that may explain how a ship can simply disappear. This 1,300-gallon wave tank was designed to precisely reproduce conditions at sea.
In this particular tank, which is unique, we can generate realistic wave spectra that occur in the open ocean.
Graber believes that one of nature's most destructive and elusive phenomena may explain many of the triangle's disappearances.
You can be faced with a wall of water that will hit you in a matter of seconds, and as quickly as it appeared, it also disappears. A rogue wave can easily generate a pressure on a ship's wall or hull that would exceed 20,000 pounds per square inch.
The power generated by rogue waves is like being blindsided by a speeding freight train. They can easily sink a ship as big as a modern freighter, and they can appear without warning.
One way that rogue waves are generated is through the superposition of many different wave modes.
Superposition happens when hundreds of small waves randomly combine to create one giant wave.
And when they meet at one particular point and at a particular time, they superimpose and you get all of a sudden one big wave.
The University of Miami's tank can show with a push of a button how quickly these huge waves can appear.
So here you have small waves in the ocean. You would not expect that a big wave might be coming. And just as you see here now, out of nowhere, the surface dips a little bit and then all of a sudden you have one big wave coming by and it breaks and disappears, and then the conditions of the ocean or the sea surface goes back to what it was before.
But rogue waves can't explain why no trace of wreckage or bodies were ever found from the 700 missing boats.
What's his airspeed?
The Mystery Quest science team is high above the Atlantic Ocean.
Roger. Now we're going into the Bermuda Triangle, crossing over the lines this time.
David Paris is testing the theory that planes can become wrapped up in a highly charged phenomenon called electronic fog. Paris is monitoring a frequency counter that measures electrical signals in the air and a tri-field meter to measure magnetic pull. A surge in either force would indicate proximity of the fog. They believe clouds are the most likely place to find it. Suddenly, the frequency counter comes alive.
Hey, Bruce? Yeah? I'm getting frequencies of 652. Look at this. Look at that. We're going through a cloud right now. Holy
Jet 814, affirmative 12000, 280 knots.
We're bouncing off the scale.
652 megahertz is extremely high. Normal is closer to just 6 or 10 megahertz. Then, the tri-field meter begins to peak.
Okay, well, these readings are really kind of impressive. They're sporadic. There isn't like a whole lot of explanation here of why the magnetic meter will go pinning itself.
Perez realizes something even more astonishing.
Yeah, and the meter's being pinned right now. And it's past my last reading of 90. It's pinned to 100 on the 100 kilovolts per meter.
That's 100,000 volts per meter. Normally, you'd need to be right next to a big industrial electrical motor to get a reading like that.
So that means we have an awful lot of energy here as we've penetrated and come out of this cloud. This is pretty phenomenal stuff.
But the source of the energy is outside the aircraft, hidden somewhere in the open air or clouds.
We're not transmitting from the aircraft, and so there's no propagation coming from here from the aircraft, so it's got to be coming from somewhere else.
Mystery Quest is on an air and sea expedition to try and unlock the puzzle of the Bermuda Triangle. This man believes he traveled through time during a flight in the triangle. This physicist believes something called electronic fog may be causing the disappearances here. And this explorer believes if he can locate wreckage from at least one triangle crash, it might help solve the mystery. Author Gian Kazar, the leading authority on triangle disappearances, is examining the propeller blade recovered from the possible triangle plane crash site off Bimini. It may provide answers to why the plane crashed, and if it's one of those that mysteriously disappeared.
If it can be traced by process of elimination, it would be the first discovery ever of an aircraft that actually vanished in the triangle.
The date etched on the base of the blade, 9/20/66, is a crucial clue to the identity of the plane.
This is ostensibly from a light twin aircraft. So the most probable would be either a Beechcraft twin Bonanza, possibly a Beechcraft Baron, and possibly a Cessna 310.
The disfigured shape of the blade is another clue.
The propeller impact occurred on this side. When it hit the water, that's when you got this fold in here. The wave to it would indicate possibly that it was spinning at the time so that the motor was working, but the propeller would have been jolted back like this, leaving a semicircular ring, yes, on that side as it hit the base of the prop as the butt impacted right there.
This means that whatever took this plane down was not engine failure.
The edging here shows that great heat was involved in some of this, so that would indicate an immediate explosion possibly of the engine upon impact.
Kazar searches the NTSB database. He's looking for a twin-engine plane that crashed after September 20th, 1966.
We can start searching the database records for aircraft on a course that would have taken it 50 or so miles east of Bimini, where it was found, and that should tell us the exact aircraft.
There's no match. Puzzled, Kazar re-examines the blade. The closer look reveals something he missed.
Oh, damned. Etched 471. If that's a date, then this thing was still flying in April 71.
This means Kazar was searching using the wrong data.
And then it was after April 1971 that this thing crashed.
Kazar researches the database, but even with this new data, the NTSB database has come up empty.
As of right now, there's no way to actually identify the aircraft.
Holy! Jet 814, affirmative 12000, 280 on off.
We're bouncing off the sky.